G'day folks, I'm just setting up for the little mini freezer implosion. I'll probably put this up as a separate video to the initial test implosion, but you can see I have a 1/2 inch vacuum inlet or outlet, whatever you like to call it. That's where the air is going to be going out. Fairly well secured. I mean, I did drill a bit too close to the corner radius of the cabinet, but this thing should implode so quick any air leaks won't matter. But I've still sealed up around where the line set goes in and all that sort of thing. I know a couple of people said just to cut the tube inside the evaporator and cut this one off and just connect the vacuum pump up, so I got an instant inlet line, but the thing is it's too small. The volume is not great enough to withstand the inrush volume from an accumulator like this. This is a water pump pressure accumulator, but I'm going to modify it a little bit so that I can hopefully vac the bladder inside it down, keep that collapsed in the bottom and turn this whole thing into a vacuum accumulator. Because right now it's under pressure. Right, that's the end of the bladder in there. So in theory I can take the Schrader valve out and it should collapse. For the most part anyway. And this thing does have some dents in it, so who knows, it might implode on itself. That's always fun. Yeah, see, it's got a bladder like an inner tube in it. I don't know how they get it in there, there's only one little hole in it, apart from the main seam weld, but I don't know if they'd weld it with it in there. It's still under pressure, of course. It's under a lot of pressure. Unless it's stuck inside there. I think it's vulcanized itself to the inside of the tank. I might have to get a hole saw and just cut a hole clean through that. Yeah, I think it's actually laminated itself to the inside of the tank. The pump probably hasn't been used in so long, it's just stuck itself in there. That's probably why they replaced it. Yeah, I just went through it. Yeah, it's actually laminated itself to the inside of the tank. Oh well, I'll get a hole saw and just run it straight down through there and cut a hole through the whole damn thing. Doesn't matter, it's only going to be a vacuum accumulator. That's alright. Amazing how much pressure's in there. Okay, I'm just working out my fittings now. I've cleaned it up. I've bored a hole through the stuck diaphragm or whatever's inside it. I think it might just be a single layer diaphragm rather than a full bladder, but either way it's got a big hole in it now, so the whole vessel becomes a vacuum chamber. I'm just working out how I'm going to trigger it, and I'm thinking I'll repurpose this pneumatically actuated ball valve. This was originally made for my air cannon and I haven't used it more than a couple of times. It was for a small 1/2 inch or 50 caliber sub barrel, and it had a pilot operated pneumatic valve actuator which I snapped the solenoid off. But thankfully I can get an easy out in there and take that busted thread out and put a new solenoid on it. Originally the idea was to be able to mount the gun on a tripod and fire it with a push button like that. You have an arm switch, so flick it over to armed and then push the push button on the control panel and it'd fire. I only used it once or twice, it was just a novelty thing. But still, I'm going to salvage this for parts. It's got a nice quick lock Stokes coupling on it and other bits and pieces. I've also got a 1 inch line outside from a bulk storage container, an IBC, intermediate bulk container or whatever they call it. We don't get too rained on. But that thing there, mind you, that's a 2-inch Stokes coupling. But the mandrel bent stainless steel line is probably what I'll use to run to the freezer cabinet. I'll just undo that 1-inch fitting. But yeah, I'm just working out. That'll probably be vacuum connect to the freezer via a valve, that valve, and that will probably be charging. I'll take that big nipple out and put a reducer down to 1/4-inch BSP so that I can just connect it straight up to this compressor on the vacuum side. This is what's going to power it, big Copeland DWM Copeland compressor. So yeah, I should have a push button vacuum release from this vessel, but of course I'll pull this vessel down first and just see what it does. If it wants to implode, it can implode. If not, it'll do the job. I doubt it will. It's fairly thick steel. It's rated to 10 bar of pressure, so in theory the atmospheric pressure around it shouldn't crush it. I mean, it's only 14.7 psi atmosphere. Once it's down to zero, once it's down to absolute vacuum, it's only 14.7 pressing it on the outside, so in theory it shouldn't hurt it. 44-gallon drums and things like that aren't made to take pressure or vacuum of any kind, so it's easy to crush them. Or at least if they do take pressure, it's very low pressure, like 1 or 2 psi, just to push liquid out of it. Okay, about ready to seal this bugger up. And just for extra measure, I've got a can of really foul tasting, well, I wouldn't even call it an alcoholic beverage. One way to ruin a nice drink is by mixing something like lime with it. I've tried one of these before. I got a couple as a test sample for free. This is the second one. The first one I had a few sips of and ended up throwing it in just dumping it out on the ground. Like, it is just foul. I can't think of a better way to ruin a nice drink other than mixing lime with it, unless it's meant to be citrus. So it can go inside there and die. Once it's sealed, it pretty much can't fall down. It'll just float around in there and go, hopefully go pop once this whole thing goes under vacuum. I might also, I'll throw some mangled bubble wrap in there too, just for fun. I don't know, I might think of a few other things. Either way, I've got screws through the door. I've adjusted the hinges all the way back so that side pulls in pretty tight. Like, it won't stay shut at all now. And I'm also going to put a big thick bead of silicone around it and leave it until next week. So we should be pretty right for this one. It should go pop. Now what else can I put inside here? I'll think of something. It'll be a surprise. Anywho, I'll seal this thing up and get on with the rest of the project. At least working out the vacuum side of it. Alrighty. I got the pneumatically actuated valve mounted up and everything should seal pretty tight. I've used a lot of sealing compound and gas grade threading tape. The mechanical union's in pretty good order as well. It's got a brass seat on it, which is nice and clean and smooth. And excuse my leaky pneumatics. I've also got a fire button. Perfect. Yep. Push the button, air goes through that line. Release the button, it comes out that exhaust hole. You've got to love it. Simple pneumatics. There's not really much else to it. That was the original trigger, which you can see it snapped off. That was mounted on there and had a electrical terminal block attached to it. Don't need that anymore. That can all go into the spare parts department with the rest of this. All I need is this and a mounting panel, so push the button, implosion takes place. Awesome. No DC power either. Otherwise I'd have to run 24 volts DC to this solenoid block, but since we got rid of the solenoid block we don't need it. Might even have a master arm switch like that. That's the rest of the system. I'll mount it on a plastic panel or something. On, off, and fire. Awesome. I love playing with pneumatics. So much fun. I might also have an air gun attached to that. But for now, let's just see what this does. Oh, it's always fun. It's even more fun when it's a 2-inch rubber airline that's flying around the workshop. I heard that happen when a forklift ran over a jackhammer line. I think it was almost 2 inch, about inch and a half. Braided rubber hose, and yeah, it kind of busted up a clamped union, and the whole lot just went flying. The metal coupling made a bit of a hole in the sheet metal wall, so I would hate to be somebody who actually got hit by it. It might hurt a bit. But little airlines, yeah, just wear glasses when you do that. You don't want to get hit in the face with it. Alright, let's try dumping 20 psi. I've filled it up with the tyre inflator at the bottom, and the valve is hooked up properly, so let's see what happens. Works quite well. It's only 20 pounds, so should really try more. This thing's rated to 10 bar, so yeah, you can crank it up a little bit more. Replace that coupling, it snapped. There's a crack in the brass.